YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here, and I'm going to be bringing you a variation of the Rune Lord rush that doesn't involve the Rune Lord, and I wanted to see how this worked out. So I brought a Master Engineer for the weapon damage buff, and I believe there's a melee attack buff that he gives as well. And I've got Thorgrim for his melee attack and leadership buffs, and then a Runesmith for the leadership and attack buffs as well. So basically looking to max out my dwarf warriors. So if we take a look at like the Master Engineer, for instance, he's got this Rune of Slowneth, which hurts enemy units around, which is pretty great. And then I've got this one that gives 12% weapon damage to all units in range. And then with Thorgrim, he's got the High King, which is the 8 melee attack and charge bonus, basically 250 meters, which is a huge radius. And then the 8 melee attack within this one for the Book of Grudges. And then again, if we take a look at the Runesmith, he's got this leadership and melee attack buff, and Rune of Wrath and Ruin, which is big for him, and also the Rune of Negation. So if we look at the overall buff up here, I mean, we get an extra 31 armor, or we're up to 31 armor piercing damage with 36 melee attack, which is really quite good for dwarf warriors with great weapons. And then some of the other units nearby, you can see the Grumbling Guard back here with 54 melee attack, which is pretty significant. So again, this is a variation of it, and I am using the WoWASG version that has the 4 Rangers with great weapons in the back. These guys are just extremely good at wiping out aerial threats and also wiping out cavalry threats, and I keep them spread out just like WoWASG did. I really like this design because it being spread out means that it puts space, like the enemy can't blob attack them. And whenever you get hit by those Lord units or the cavalry or whatever it is, the unit next door basically can support. And the axes with all the armor piercing are really good at wiping out those cavalry or flyers or whatever else it is that comes down at you. You all saw how fast the Red Duke melted up against that stuff, so it's pretty effective. Now the Chaos Army I'm up against is a lot of warriors with great weapons. There's 4 of them with 1 chosen great weapon. There's 2 aspiring champions to keep them in the fight, and which is sad, right? All these really nice Chaos warriors have to have aspiring champions. 2 spawn, 1 fire sorcerer. And then he's got his lord out here on a Chaos Steed, and there's a Chaos Knight with lances. So I go ahead and join the fight in the center. I want to just go ahead and start doing as much damage to the Chaos Warriors with great weapons as we can. Thorgrim's going to come in and help buff the units here, and I'm actually going to bring these guys into combat with these units as well, because Thorgrim does pretty good against armored infantry blobs, infantry blobs in general. And then I've got these Grumbling Guard. I'm going to bring them into combat. I'm going to send some help over here against the Chosen with great weapons. And I'm going to try and fend off the Chaos Knights with lances. I've already got an attack order on them. And then over here, my opponent finally sees these warriors with Rangers with great weapons. He sends the Chaos Spawn, and I didn't spot them because I was micromanaging over here against these Chaos Spawn, which I am wiping out really quickly. And so my attack order was on the Knights here, and I end up getting mobbed quickly by Chaos Spawn, so that was a huge mistake on my part when I could have cleanly wiped those guys out had I been paying attention. Now the fight in the center goes clearly in my favor. The Chaos Warriors get mowed down because of the 3 heroes that are helping, and the aspiring champions are suffering as well. The Knights with lances are doing weird things, like kind of almost charging through their own guys, whereas the Chaos Lord is kind of choosing what he wants to do. So these Chaos Spawn came out to attack me. I'm chasing them with infantry. And here you can see the Quarrelers with good grief, the Rangers with great weapons are able to put damage on these units. So see, this one got chased off. These guys have been putting down support, so this Chaos Spawn's now half dead. The Cavalry has taken damage trying to get to my guys back here, and again, he can't tie down all my units very effectively. He's just failing to. And this allows these warriors with great weapons to finish off the Chaos Spawn, so now they're no longer a threat, and I can turn in over here, finish off cavalry or whatever else it is. So he's having to send a ton of units back here to deal with the Rangers with great weapons, and rightfully so. If he doesn't deal with these guys, they're going to wreck all of his key units, and that means that up front he can't deal with my heroes, and my heroes are buffing my troops to keep them come, and in this big blob like this and all my buff troops, I get a huge benefit out of them, and then Thorgrim's able to just hammer away and not get a whole lot of damage caused to himself in return. And then the Runesmith can eat away with the Rune of Wrath and Ruin, and then also the Master Engineer can do his work. So I'm able to get quite a bit done here. So his infantry's suffering badly while he attempts to mop up. And see again right here where his Chaos Lord is attacking one of the Rangers with great weapons, I'm able to take another one and turn and start pitching axes in here, and I start causing very substantial damage. This Chaos Lord here has a shield, and that's one of the only things keeping him from getting melted even faster. But you can see even there with a couple of quick throws, the Chaos Lord takes substantial damage. You see how I kind of pull one away to open him up for this? So the two Rangers can kind of just work a target like this, and it forces him to run off. So we're able to take the Lord out of the way, and again, the spawn got almost destroyed just going after a couple of skirmishers. We're able to wrap up the aspiring champions, and then that means that the Chosen are really the only big threat left over here, and they have been kicking the crap out of my dwarfs, but they've also been kind of slowly getting whittled down. All of my heroes are alive, which means that the Chaos player here is in pretty big trouble because he doesn't have a whole lot of units left that are going to be really dangerous. I go ahead and take a throw in here. I want to do a little more damage to the Chaos Lord, and I get some damage done. I'm not going to keep throwing, though, because I don't want to damage my my own dwarves. I do throw one more volley, it looks like. And when I saw that one come in, I was looking at all the health bars, and I was worried that I was killing my own dwarfs more than anything. I forced him to use his healing potion here, the Potion of Toughness. And watch this. The cavalry got beat up earlier. It's going to come back. Again, cavalry's high armor. Normally it can withstand maybe a bit of skirmisher fire, but the Rangers with great weapons just mow down the cavalry units, and they can do immense damage. And that sends Chaos into pretty much a rout here. Their Lord's about to take off running as well. So in this case, you know, I didn't come up against the Shaggoth builds. I mean, you have the Rangers with great weapons. They can certainly help deal with Shaggoths. I had another one battle, though, where I used the Wowazg version, basically, of the Rune Rush, and we'll show you that one as well. Actually, this is the one I just showed you. My bad. Give me just a second. I'll load back out of it. Oh, I knew it was the other one. I'm not sure why I clicked on this. Here we go. Alright, let's quit the replay. It is 2, not 3. So we'll load this one up. This is where I used, again, pretty much the same army that he did. It's just slightly different. And I wanted to put to the test the stacked Rune of Wrath and Ruin, and also the Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin, and just kind of see how effective it was. Both these battles happen to be against Chaos. Chaos is a faction that I feel like the dwarves can have a fun time trying to counter, especially with all the double Shaggoth builds out here. Now, I did go ahead and put the Rune Lord on an Anvil of Doom because it gives him both magic and physical resistance, which basically just makes him a much more of a pain in the butt to kill. And then I got the 2 Rune Smiths. So double Runesmith, they're kind of standing out here a little ways to help bolster up the army. So basically across, all my guys are being buffed, and then the same kind of crescent formation here in the back with the Rangers with great weapons. And these guys being hidden means that unless your opponent goes and does some dedicated scouting, which a good opponent will, and they'll get an idea of what they're up against, but a lot of opponents just kind of really think that it looks like fun to charge into these helpless stunties and try and cut them down, and it ends up usually kind of hitting them in the back. So let's see if my opponent makes the same mistake. He has a Death Sorcerer here, potentially trying to cause like a Fear Army, which could work against my Warriors with great weapons, but with all the Runesmiths and the Rune Lord around, probably not going to work. And then also the Longbeards that are behind them won't suffer. Now this time he brought a Chariot. The Chariot is a very dangerous unit to the dwarves. As soon as he saw my Rangers with great weapons, he sends the Gorebeast Chariot back here because he knows that these guys are going to be dangerous. And before he can really wrap up one of my units with his Warhounds and the Chariot, his Chariot takes immense damage from the other units. You can see he's just desperately trying to charge forward and kill as many of these Rangers, and he does get one unit, but by the time he gets one unit, the Chariots are all but dealt with. They have all their unit models, but they're already wavering, and they're way down on health. So he charges through, tries to disrupt my Rangers as much as possible, but it cost him his Warhounds, and it's also going to cost him a Chariot. So my Rangers haven't quite paid for themselves, but they've already paid some pretty serious dividends here. In total, that's a pretty considerable amount of units to take off the battlefield, especially this one right here, which if you look at these infantry blobs over here, that Chariot could have been critical to the success of Chaos here. In fact, I think he should have tried to ignore my guys as long as possible and go ahead and plunge into these infantry blobs, but he just didn't. So the Chaos Chariot's chased out. I've got 3 Rangers with great weapons left. My Runesmith is over here supporting a few infantry units, and then I've got my Rune Lord and another Runesmith over here. I've been dropping the Rune of Wrath and Ruin and the Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin on this Chosen right here. You can see here comes another Wrath and Ruin. So basically I'm using it on the most valuable unit to maximize the devastation that it causes. His Chaos Warriors just don't have armor piercing, really, so Chaos Warriors are not a great pick versus the dwarfs. They're not able to penetrate the armor of the tanky dwarf infantry very effectively, so I don't find Chaos Warriors to be a very good backbone. Chaos Warriors have some interesting stats. They can't punch through armored infantry. They're very good versus unarmored infantry. And here comes the throwing axes from the Rangers with great weapons, and these are armored units too. So the Rangers with great weapons tend to be a pretty nice pick versus Chaos, unless you just got rushed by Forsaken or something. And then the Forsaken wouldn't do enough damage to the rest of your infantry because they're armored, so you should be safe one way or the other. So you can see that this side over here gets wrapped up because of this. The Warhounds come back and think they're still going to be able to finish off my Rangers. They will not. They're going to get beaten. And since the Rune Lord isn't being killed, nor is the Rune Smith, I'm just able to keep chipping away. You can see over here that the Chosen gets hit by the Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin. And what would have taken a long time and a lot of fight to get rid of these guys. And again, these Chosen without the great weapons, look how few kills they get. So they're just not a good pick versus the dwarfs. They can sometimes be tempting, I think, for people because they cost less than the great weapon variant. But you got to know what it is that you're picking the units to do. My opponent had a lot of non-armor piercing infantry here versus a heavily armored faction, and that's just a mistake. That Death Sorcerer looks freaking cool. He's like, yeah, I'm going to go for a jog, guys. Let me know how the battle ends. Peace. See ya. And then the Gore Beast Chariots is thinking about going and getting some new wheels or something like that, too. Yeah. Chaos is getting wrapped up. They don't really have a chance here. The Exalted Hero gets chased off. The Chaos Lord is Prince Sigvald, the Not-So-Magnificent. And he's over here. Now, of course, he's much more survivable now because he has the regeneration. So it makes him, you know, a little bit harder to kill for some of these factions, that's for sure. See how effective he's been. He's only got 19 kills, though. The guy has great weapon damage, but without the armor piercing, again, he's doing damage, but he's just not, like, waylaying my dwarfs like a lord with armor piercing might do. So aside from looking cool, and I thought Sigvald wasn't supposed to get bloody, like his cloak wasn't supposed to get dirty. Isn't that like part of the lore? What happened here? Look at Sigvald, thinks he's so cool. I think I turn around and focus on him here in just a second because I was chasing off one of the units that routed. But yeah, we'll turn around and come finish him off. Poor Siggy Sigvald. He's still not very good. His Aspiring Champions look awesome too. I love kind of like the purplish glow to their sword. I don't know if it's supposed to look purple, but it kind of does. May just be supposed to be like it's red hot or something. Yeah, the Rune Lord is one awesome character too. He's an interesting lord that got added. I feel like the dwarves have like several very viable options for lords. I think Grombrindle's probably my favorite, but this Rune Lord plus Rune Smiths is a pretty devastating combination with the dwarves, and it can be pretty hard to overcome if you don't bring the right tools. Because that Rune of Wrath and Ruin, combined with the Master version of it, it's just straight painful. And then he's not easy to kill because of the damage resistance. I mean, the damage resistance on him is significant. I think that the best way to get a hold of him, now he does have magic resistance too, so I mean you could try something like Spirit Leech just to help, but at the same time, like, I mean, the magic resistance is going to slow that down as well, I believe. Does the magic resistance protect them against spells that cause magical damage? I mean, one would think. Or does it only protect them against magical attacks? I don't know. May have to test that one at some point. I mean, it seems like it would block against all magic, but I guess you never know. Hope you all enjoyed these. What are you thinking on this Dwarf Rush Army? I guess kind of Rush Army. I'm thinking the Rangers with Great Weapons was a unit that I highly undervalued up until recently. I'm not saying they're like a fix-all for the Dwarves, but they're a nice tool to kind of keep the enemy honest about having to scout and not just assuming that like monsters or cavalry are going to have free roam of the field. When you have a unit like that, they can snuff them out so quickly. So I kind of like that, and then, like I said, in that build, the 4 of them kind of spaced out like that, mean that the enemy have to commit a lot of resources in micro to get rid of them, and typically they're able to overcome those odds, and it keeps your other troops safe from all the rear charges or monsters or other stuff that's focused on the Rangers. So, I don't know. I really like that one. Give me your thoughts. HeirofCarthage signing out for now. Hope you enjoyed it. I will see you then.